My name's Seth Glicksman. I'm barely important. In fact, considering the number of someones you probably know, I hardly compare. I have done some things. Sure, I've starred in an award-winning short. I run an improv group, and I prefer cheese to sauce when it comes to pasta toppings. But generally, let's recognize that I have had very little impact on the world aside from my immediate vicinity. So who am I really? I mean, after that introduction, who isn't swooned into wanting more? Well, for one, I go to SUNY New Paltz. It's a liberal little state school in upstate New York, and for those of you who don't know, it was once a pretty happening place. They once hosted Jimi Hendrix, The Who, Led Zeppelin. They were progressive before progressive was a political word. And if you ask me how I felt about that, well, I'd tell you pretty good. I've always felt that progressive was a good word. It means improvement, getting better, becoming better than what you once were. And yet...
If I were to vote, Donald Trump.
I will vote for Donald Trump.
As my mother and her boyfriend Chris. My mother, she runs her own hair salon. It's her own business, and she makes a pretty decent living. Chris, he runs his own auto body repair shop. They're both small business owners. And they're both in support of Donald Trump.
Make it greater than ever before. We have a chance, I think, with what we have going, with how great the people of this country are, we have a chance to make it maybe greater than ever before. And I mean it, and I mean it, and I mean it 100%.
Yeah, I know. I don't get it either. But it's the truth. They and a dozen other, well, a dozen's probably an understatement, they and at least 743 other people would like to see Donald Trump sit in the Oval Office. What does that mean exactly? Well, who's Donald Trump?
I'm going to take our jobs back from China, from everywhere. We're going to bring them back, and people know that.
On the debates, it's very interesting, because I don't really care that much. I want a room, I want a podium, and let's get going.
Yeah, I know. So that's Trump. But hey, let's be fair. You know, he took a small loan from his father of $1 million and took a company that his father already built and turned it into a brand name. That's commendable, I guess. He's a businessman. And that seems to be what a lot of people like about him. That seems to be what a lot of people like about his candidacy for president.
He knows how to run a business. And really that's the country has to be turned around and run as a business. It hasn't been run like a business in God knows how long. I think he's got the control to do that. He knows how to spend a dollar wisely. If it's not, if you put money towards something and it's sucking you dry, he knows when to stop feeding that entity.
I think, though, there's something about Donald Trump that shouldn't be forgotten, and it's this. He's an entertainer. He's received an award for his success in making people watch television. But...
Either way, everybody's watching. I guess that was the point of what I was trying to make. Either way, everyone's watching, whereas, for years, I remember when Bush was running for president and kids didn't know, and I remember I didn't give a crap.
I think the most frightening part about this is that I haven't really gotten into Donald Trump's politics yet. He's mentioned some policies that he plans to enact upon taking office that have been somewhat, controversial. Of them includes a Muslim database, mass deportation of illegal immigrants. Oh, and what's that last one?
The wall's going to cost $10 billion. It's going to be a nice wall. Going to be beautiful. Going to be very big, very powerful. Someday, they're going to name that wall after Donald Trump, perhaps, so I have to make it nice. And let me tell you, we're going to have a big, beautiful door in that wall. We're going to have people coming into our country, which we want, but they're going to come in legally.
Right. A giant wall along the U.S.-Mexican border that would cost upwards of $6.4 billion. What do my parents think about this?
Sometimes he just says things that are inappropriate, rude.
I like the fact that he speaks out of his ass at times.
With President Obama in his final year, yay. That's what we need. We need a little more aggression in this country.
People won't say certain things because it's not politically correct, or they don't want so-and-so to hear the way they really feel. They have to follow what they've been told to say. He doesn't care. He will speak his mind. That's a huge piece in the way I feel about him.
I like that too. On some levels.
His choices may not always be the best for everybody else to think so, but it still has to go through 1,000 other people before you can make a rule anyway, or a law for that matter.
So I reached out. I spoke to Professor of Sociology at SUNY New Paltz, Brian Obach, about why people, like my parents, would be so in favor of a man who's so opposite their struggles.
To the extent that there is this segment of the population that tends to support him, they are people who have valid, in many cases, have valid grievances. If we look at sort of his core base of supporters, white working class people.
Mr. Trump is going to bring jobs back to America. He just said 350,000 lost jobs in New York. He's going to bring millions back to America. I am so proud of him. I love Donald Trump. And finally, somebody tells us the truth.
They have been getting screwed basically for the last several decades. We have seen wages stagnate. We have seen high rates of unemployment. We've seen the collapse of manufacturing industries in this country. So there's reason why people are disgruntled. The question then becomes where do they channel their anger and frustration?
So they're angry? Upset? Frustrated? Well, that makes a lot of sense. Especially when the man who's running for president is telling you should be. There's an element of validation there. But let's not get this wrong. There's a lot of reasons to be stressed. There's North Korea, there's the Middle East, there's Russia, NSA spying, racial tension, police brutality, and American democracy being threatened by corporate rule. You know, when you put this on the back of the American citizen, you start to feel like your way of life is being threatened.
A lot of times they cannot articulate themselves why they're supporting Trump, like what policies they think are going to benefit them.
I'm tired of the American people going down this bad road of not wanting to get what they want. We're a superpower, man, and we're getting pushed around left and right, and we're taking it, and I think it's time we stand up for ourselves.
You have a strong businessman. I mean, you see him debate, and he tears it up. No other politician can debate this man on stage, and I think that's exactly how he's going to do it when he's debating with Putin, people in China, and also Middle Eastern countries.
It's the taxi drivers at New York and the common laborers that like him, and that's I think the kind of politician we need in America right now. Someone like that can take a charge, take a stand.
But what they express is a feeling that they relate to him as a person, that he is speaking his mind, that he is an outsider, and that therefore, if he's not part of government now, if government is viewed as part of their problem, which in some ways it is, and in some ways it's the solution to their problem, but if he's viewed as separate from the source of their problem, that's what they want. He demonstrates emotions that they relate to, and they are drawn to it.
Which leads me to a little thing called death reminders. Now, a death reminder is a psychological term that refers plainly to something that reminds us of our own mortality. So, in a world where the dollar is so closely linked to our chances of survival, it doesn't come as any surprise when middle-class people who struggle to survive are inundated with messages that are interpreted as death reminders. For instance...
And he's saying how tough ISIS is. Oh, they're very tough. Well, how are we going to do? I don't know. They're very tough. Can you imagine the enemy's watching this, and they're saying, is this what we're fighting? Not going to happen anymore, folks. We're going to have the toughest, smartest people.
In a study conducted at the University of Kansas by Sheldon Solomon, Jeff Greenberg, and Tom Pazinski, it was discovered that death reminders cause us to cling closely to those that we deem similar to ourselves. We become agitated and aggressive. In another study, it was discovered that those given death reminders were more likely to support George W. Bush. Another small side effect of death reminders is that we have an attraction to leaders who are charismatic and condone an us versus them mentality. Oh my God. Donald Trump is a giant walking death reminder. So maybe the reason why my parents and so many other Americans feel so connected to Donald Trump is because he's manipulating them. He's exacerbating their fears, and he's taking these death reminders and putting them on pedestals. I mean, I know my mother. She might not think she has struggles, but they're there. We live in a basement. We live on the poverty line. And while I don't know Chris all that well, he lives with her. And when you consider all these ideas, you realize that Trump is awakening in all of us this sense of our own mortality. This narrative of the world is caving in on us and he's the only one that can protect us. One of the notes in the study regarding death reminders is one that you find in a lot of studies regarding the brain, and that's that there's nothing we can really do about the fact that it occurs. Kind of like Trump. We can combat his rhetoric, we can shut down his rallies, but he's in this for the long run and could potentially become leader of the free world. But just because there's nothing we can do about the fact that it occurs, doesn't mean that there's nothing we can do. We can become aware. Be aware of the fact that you're experiencing a death reminder. Be aware of the fact that your sense of mortality has been triggered and that there's an impact, there's an effect taking place. Be aware of Donald Trump, of what he says and what he does, and that what he says and does has an effect. Being aware of these things causes us to reason with our conditions. And when we reason in a world of extremes, we understand. In a world of extremes, we need reason. We need reason.